Hello everybody, it's Jen, Scrapbena Creations. I have a Kindred Stamps design team project for you today. I'm using the March new release Arabian Nights stamp set, which will be available for purchase on March 22nd. I absolutely love all the little characters, and these sayings are fantastic. So for today's card, I'm going to be using the genie and the genie's magic lantern. So for the lantern, I don't have a really great color combination for gold. So I'm trying my hand at E18, E15, Y36 or 38. Y38, had to check my marker, I can barely see the cap, and Y15. So I started with my lightest marker. I wanted to try to get a really good blend here. I went on to the first midtone, the Y38, and I'm bringing in the E15. I'm just touching the very tip of my marker to the paper. I don't want there to be a lot of brown, but I want it to give that golden shading look. After I do the E15, I come in with the E18 and I use that even less, just really lightly touching my marker here. And then I will go back through all four, well not all four because I'm on the fourth, all three colors. So going in with the E15 there, now I'm doing the Y38, and each time I'm bringing the color out more and more. And finally I'll come in with the Y15. So I think despite not having a color combination that I would have liked for gold, that this turned out okay. So just encouraging you to use the colors that you have and try your best to get the color that you're going for. So once I do a little bit of tip to tip technique here, I'm going to move on to the gold for the genie. So I want to do his little earrings in gold, his little arm cuffs, and later on I am going to go back and do his little ponytail holder. So these areas are very tiny, so I'm just using three colors here. I'm using the E15, the Y38, and the Y15. I figured if I went in with the fourth color, it just would have been brown and it wouldn't have looked gold at all. So now I'm going to move on to the genie himself, and I'm going to color up this genie in blue tones. So I'm using B06, B04, B02, and B00. Coming in with my lightest marker here and just adding where I think I want the darkest shading to be. I do want his head to look round, so I want to make sure that I'm adding lots of color to the sides of his head. The shading would be under his belt, under his chin, under that line drawn on his chest, which I guess would be his chest muscle, and where the little squigglies come in for the bottom of our genie here. I'm also going to give him a little bit of dark shadowing under the ponytail to either side of his head, and a little bit in his ears and under his nose. So now I'm coming in with the B04. You can see I'm really starting to darken this. I want him to be a nice, well, a little bit darker than a robin's egg blue, but he's going to turn out to be a really pretty blue color after I get on all of my multiple layers. So here's where I'm coming in with the darkest color. Now I find it easiest to sometimes just go right around the line of the image with a straight line as opposed to flicking out. This can lead to a bit more challenges with your blending, but I find it helps me stay in the lines. It wasn't the smoothest blend that I got, so I think if I did this again, I would try to do a little bit more flicking, especially on his head, but really it turned out just fine. So as I bring in each of the colors, I extend the lines out a little bit further each time. I'm going to leave only a tiny spot for the lightest color for highlight. Just a little bit there on his arms and chest and on the body underneath his belt. And I'm going to come in with the B02 here and fill in most of his face. I'm going to work on blending that quite a bit, leaving just a little spot for the highlight. Now in some areas I do go over the entire image again with the B00. That will pull out some of the darkest color, which will help with the blending. Off camera, I did go over the image one more time with the B00 and let that dry back, and it blended in pretty smoothly. But you can see here I am working on this quite a bit to get it blended to what I want it to be. So once I get his body done, I'm going to move on to his little facial hair and his ponytail. So I want this to appear black. I'm going to use C7 as my darkest marker. Again, just using the very tip of my marker. These areas are really tiny, so you just want to make sure you're lightly touching the nib to the paper. Came in with the mid-tone and the lightest, and then decided that I wanted to darken this up a little bit more, so I'm going back through with all three of the markers. For his belt, I'm going to color this red, so I'm using R39, R29, and R24. I'm doing the darkest shadows to the sides so it looks a little bit rounded. I fussy cut out all of the images and I cut them straight to the line, and I want to have the little lantern here with the top off, so I'm just going to cut that off. I did go over all of my images with my Memento Tuxedo black marker. This just finishes off your images really nicely after fussy cutting. And I want to make sure that I do this to both pieces of the lantern so it looks like it's potentially supposed to be that way. To create my background, I'm going to be using some inexpensive makeup brushes and some Distress Oxide inks. So I want this to be smaller at the bottom where it's coming out of the lantern, and then getting wider as it moves to the top of the card. So I'm using this really tiny makeup brush here for the bottom, and as I get to the larger area, I'm going to use a wider brush, which will help me achieve the look that I'm going for. It is a bit darker at the bottom, but I'm not too worried about it, and I'm also not worried about it not being a smooth blend, because I want this to look like a puff of smoke coming out of the lantern, so it would have lots of imperfections in it anyways, and the darker spots give it a nice excuse me, bit of texture. So I'm just going to come over this again, and I'm going to use the Wilted Violet here. I want it to be a bluish purple smoke. And so these two are the perfect color combination to achieve the effect that I want. I'm dabbing off my brush on just a piece of computer paper so that I don't have too much ink on my brush and have it be kind of globby or just really dark. I want a very soft look with this puff of cloud or smoke or whatever you want to call it. So I want this to blend out to a white near the top. Now that I have my background done, I'm going to add some fun foam, not fun foam, I always say fun foam, some foam adhesive to my little elements here. So I put the genie down, and now I'm going to put his lantern underneath him. My plan here is to stamp out the sentiment underneath the lantern. I'm going to just put that down a little bit more, and then I want to add some foam adhesive to the top. I had it here, and then I thought, do I want it on the left hand side? So you'll see me here, I'll move it to the left, but I don't like that at all. I like it kind of situated underneath the spout of the lantern. I think that that really balances it out. So now I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, which reads, "Your birthday wish is my command." I did stamp this out 3 times just to get that dark black crisp image that I wanted. So I'm going to use my Versafine black Onyx ink. I find that this is the best for detailed sentiments. It stamped fine the first time, but I wanted it to be nice and bold underneath all of those kind of brighter colors that I used in our little genie character and the lamp. So I'm going to clean that up with my stamp chamois. I thought that I would corner round the two bottom corners of the cards. I'm just using my old school Creative Memories corner rounder. I'm going to add this to my card base. This is a standard A2 size card at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Once I get that in place, I just take a look at it, see if there's anything else I want to do. And for final touches, I am going to bring in my black glaze pen. I'm just going to do his eyes, and then I'm going to bring in my white gel pen, and I'm going to add some highlights onto the lantern, onto the handle, and to the body of it. And then I'm going to add a highlight to one side of his head, on his belt, on the cuffs of his sleeve, and just by his ponytail, and that will finish the card. Thanks for joining me today, everyone. Have a fabulous day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!